All right, and here with the Intellectual Saviors, we have Casey Crescenzo, the lead singer for the Deer Hunter. How you doing,
Yes.
Casey?
I'm good. How are you?
Fan-freaking-tastic. So I wanted to go first
Is
into...
that sarcasm?
What? No, that's not sarcasm. That's the truth.
He's
I wanted to go into your the symphony that you have coming out.
Uh-huh.
I know that was probably a big deal, and it's probably been a big deal for a while now, and you're going through everything, mixing it and all that stuff. I'm not sure. Have you completed all that yet, by the way?
Yeah, actually, it's been in the hands of the actual vinyl manufacturer for a few months now.
Oh, awesome.
And like a bunch of records and schedules for indie bands and indie record labels, the production schedule got thrown off by... Record Store Day or what's the name of it? I forget.
I don't know.
But the day that's all about vinyl. I forget the name, but
We're gonna call it Vinyl Day.
Yeah,
no,
sure.
I know it's got a name. I think it's Record Store Day. But
That's fair.
But essentially, it was first supposed to be released in actually a couple weeks, but it's been pushed back. I think a month to June.
Ooh. Well, I know that I can't wait to get my hands on it.
Awesome.
I was one of the very few who got on the Pledge Now. I'm just kidding. The Pledge Now thing went by really fast. How long was that up?
It was, I guess they kept it open for a few months, but I think it was fulfilled, or it passed its goal within a week or two, I think.
That's good. That's incredible to know that even though you're going in a completely different direction from everything you've ever done, that your fans at least support you in whatever aspect you decide to take it down. Speaking of which, I want to know, how did that come about? Was that something that you've kind of always had an inclination to do? Is it something that's been on the back burner? Or did doing a symphony just kind of fall into your lap and you're like, hell yeah, I kind of want to do that?
It was actually like sort of baby steps for a while, where we did a show a few years ago where we performed the color spectrum from start to finish, and we were going to do a third of the show with a string quartet, or we did do a third of the show with a string quartet.
Yep, I remember. I was there.
Oh, awesome. Well, I had hired someone to take care of sort of transcribing the arrangements I did on the recording. And at the point that I made that record, and before that as well, I never really had tried to do the traditional staff music, write things out for musicians. I always just explained the parts to them and sang them their melodies and discussed articulations with them. So I had hired someone to transcribe what was on the record and prepare sheet music for a string quartet for the show. And he backed out, I think, just days before the show was slated to happen. So I had to figure it out really quick how to sort of woodshed my way through, arranging physical staff music and transposition and things like that. And so that was my first attempt at physically doing the technical side of the music that I had never really done before. And I enjoyed it. So making the next record after that, I actually prepared music for a string quartet going into the record, and they came and performed that. And then after that, I just sort of like jumped forward 100 steps and told everybody that I just wanted to make a symphony, everybody being my record label, my management. And at first they all, said no. They said that was a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that I hadn't really done anything that would prove capable, and B, it would be too tough of a sell to all of the business people involved. So it sat around for a few months before I just got angry and said I was going to do it. and then when we were discussing how to do it, we knew that it was something that we wanted to, at the very least, use to brand my imprint record label, along with actually a record that was just released today by a band called Naive Thieves.
I saw it on Facebook.
Yeah, their record's amazing. But I essentially we knew we wanted to brand it with the Cave and Canary goods, so we knew that it was going to be very expensive. We knew that we couldn't find funding for it on our own, and that's where the crowdfunding came in. Was really just as this is the only way we can do it, and if it doesn't raise the money, then we just won't do it, because that means nobody would want to hear it. So I was prepared to just not do it. If there was no demand, I would have taken that as a sign that it was not meant to be.
Well, cool. I'm glad that everybody stepped up and gave you their money so you could do it.
So, Casey, on that note...
Yeah.
I know, right? On that note, so I've heard you play piano. I'm pretty aware of your prowess on piano. Are you classically trained in anything else besides guitar or piano, in terms of like classical instruments, any horns?
No, I'm not actually trained on any instrument, and one of the hardest things in writing the symphony is that I don't know how to read music. So it was a very strange learning process. But I had a violin when I was younger, and my hands are too big to play it, and I never tried. It was like at a period of time where I didn't even know what a viola was or a cello was. I saw, I think, somebody playing in a bluegrass band when I was in middle school or something, and thought that the fiddle was awesome. So I tried it, and I failed.
Yeah, you're not alone in the failing at violin. I don't know how many violin players I know, but there are very few.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, I was just curious. Okay, so according to... I don't know how familiar you are with people who write music for like video games. Do you know who Nobuo Uematsu is?
No, I don't.
Do you know who? But do you know the Final Fantasy series?
Yes.
Of games? Okay, he was the person who did 7, 8, and 9, and then he did like Super Smash Brothers.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, I've heard him on a couple of interviews. This is back to the symphony, but he was saying that it's a really weird, intuitive conundrum when you try to like bridge rock type melodies and rhythms into orchestra, and you kind of have to write parts that fit both. So I wanted to see how much of a conscious effort on your part did you put into making sure that your symphony didn't sound too much like the Deer Hunter or too much like a rock type ensemble.
Well, knowing that guy composed music for those games, I can definitely hear how he seems to write with a heavy rock melodic mind when he's writing the orchestral music. But for me, I think that it's always been a little bit of the reverse. And when I was writing rock songs, my mind and my ear always gravitated towards a more orchestral sound. And in writing the symphony, I think it was not necessarily easy, but it was really organic, because things like choruses, there's a format essentially, but it isn't the rock format, and the use of repetition is a totally different. You approach repetition in a different way. So I think just the fundamentals of the difference in the goal of each of those types of music, orchestral and rock or pop. For me personally, it was a really simple, organic transition. But I say that, and I'm sure when people listen to it, they'll be able to hear obvious things that I do naturally, whatever style of music I'm writing or whatever set of instruments I use. But I didn't really think about it too much, to be honest.
Okay.
So where did you start writing the symphony as far as instrumentally, and then also what was the first major hurdle? I'm pretty sure you may have had a couple, but was there ever a part where you were just like, oh crap, I don't know how I'm going to do this?
Yeah, every single day I had that thought. Let's see, I'm trying to think. I wrote it on piano in a very primitive way, because I'm not a good enough piano player to play what I wanted to hear in the symphony. So I wrote these sort of like child's building block Lego version of what the symphony would become. And so I'd write this piano, then I would I would write the instruments around the piano, and then I would refine the piano's part to sort of accent and amplify the instruments, and it was kind of back and forth between the piano and the rest of the orchestra. And that was one of the bigger hurdles for me, was the connection between the two, because I knew I wanted the piano to be the center of it, but I didn't want it to necessarily be just I don't know what the word is if it's a concerto, but I didn't want it to be the piano symphony. I just wanted that to be sort of the main character of the symphony. It's hard to describe. But every single day I was working on it, I would get frustrated, and I would think that I was going to have to sort of give everyone their money back and tell them that I just couldn't do it. And I wrote it pretty much in its entirety at my parents' home in California. My dad, in the last year or so, bought a really nice grand piano, and it's one of those instruments that you sit at and it just sort of writes music for you. Just the tonality of it, it just is very inspiring.
Were there any parts of the symphony that you had to leave out that you wish you could have put in?
I have a good amount of snippets that I wrote sort of on notepad ideas, but I refined as I went, and if something didn't fit and if something didn't seem like it was going to make the music better, or I guess push whatever idea or moment or emotion along, anything that seemed out of place, I didn't really chase it down for too long. There were some things that are in the symphony that I thought I wasn't going to be able to work into it that ended up being some of my favorite moments, but really it's my favorite. It's a grouping of my favorite things that I wrote during that time. So anything that would have been left out, I would assume is pretty bad if I went back and listened to it.
So I guess that's your response. What's the response from those around you, some of the ones closest to you for your symphony? Or have they heard it yet?
My family, my manager's girlfriend, pretty much everyone who's close to me has heard it. And they're all going to tell me that it's, whatever they say it is, but I don't know. I don't want to think about it too much. I feel like if it was terrible, they would tell me that I did a great job either way. So I definitely appreciate that they listen to it and they choose to listen to it when I haven't asked them what they think of it, and they seem to enjoy it. But I try not to, with most things, this and anything else I've done, I try not to pay attention to the compliments too much.
I understand.
That's pretty humble of you.
Moving on to the music industry, which I know me and Boggs have a lot of reverence for. I'm being facetious. And you kind of said it earlier when you were talking about wanting to write the symphony and then people just telling you, yeah, that's probably not the brightest idea.
Yeah.
But do you feel, because you're not backed by a huge label, do you feel vulnerable at all? Or do you feel more liberated that you don't have to adhere to their restrictions? Like if a major record label took you guys over whenever you were in Act 2, they would probably want a Red Hands style song in every single album you did, and they certainly would not let you go out and do a symphony. Even if it was crowdfunded, they'd still be like, no, you can't do that. You got to go make us more money.
Every label has wanted a Red Hands type of song in every record I've done since that record. On that subject, the only thing that ever bothers me about that song or about people bringing that song up is that I never want to feel like the best thing that I did already happened. And that sort of, you should try and write another song like Red Hands. That sort of mentality and sentiment is very discouraging, because especially when that's coupled with reviewing new material that I'm showing someone. And that happens all the time. It's I think everyone around me has learned not to make that suggestion anymore. But I don't know if I necessarily feel vulnerable. I think I more feel like I've tricked everyone into giving me an opportunity to do something. And I know that I'm not necessarily deserving of it, but as long as like I've got someone who's willing to book shows for me and somebody who wants to put the records out, I can continue living the sort of dream-like life that I live. So I, as weird and sort of manipulative as that sounds, it's just that I don't necessarily think that I, fundamentally anyone deserves the platform that I've been given. So I just choose instead of worrying about keeping it, or instead of worrying about becoming a huge artist or playing that game, I'm more worried about taking advantage of it in the moment that I have it.
I'm sorry, is this what Whisper's about? In a lot of ways?
Actually, Whisper is about a very specific occurrence or moment in my life, and with a group of people who I don't want to single anyone out by name because he would probably check this and
oh, feel free, we do it on the show all the time.
Shut up. I'm notorious. I'm sorry.
It's that song is about I mean, I guess it's a fairly straightforward song. The song that is more about that and is more about that feeling is oh man, I forget. I think it's called Shouting at the Rain. I only remember songs based on the working titles I use.
Like Sexy Song?
Yeah, exactly. Because I don't name songs. That's one thing that is I guess I have to admit I haven't like named 80% of the Deer Hunter songs since Act 3. Since Act 3 was the last time, because I had such a like stubborn vision for it that I had named the songs before I even wrote them. So
right.
The color spectrum, I think about 80% of the songs were named by one of my managers and a guy I used to play in a band with whose name is Andrew Cook, and he actually also named most of the songs on Migrant. And then my friend Cameron from Naive Thieves also helps me name songs, just because I hate naming them. I feel like once I've written them, I've recorded them and performed them, I'm done with them, and I can't really think too much more about them. And then the naming just seems like a I don't know, it bores me. The act of naming a song seems like the least creative part about making it. So I don't like to waste my time with it.
We're kind of the opposite on the show. We think that the title of our episodes are the most creative we can ever get. The rest of it's garbage.
It is the most creative.
So when you embark on a new project, I mean, you touched on it a little bit, but how conscious are you of your listening audience? I mean, are you really kind of writing for people, or is it more you're writing for yourself, or is it a little bit of both?
I think I take everyone out of the mix, including myself. I mean, I guess fundamentally I have to be writing for myself because it's my internal feedback that gives me the sort of decision making to follow an idea in one direction or another. But I am not necessarily taking such a close-minded approach to the song where it's got to I don't know how to explain it. I guess it would be writing for myself if I had to actually get down into it. Because the most important thing to me is that when I hear the song or when I feel that it's completed, that I feel fulfilled. And I think that when you write for other people, unless I could have every single Deer Hunter fan that exists in the room with me while I was writing, that writing for them would be somewhat in vain, because everybody changes. Everybody who listens to the band evolves as time goes on, and their tastes change, and their 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 passions change. So if I just tried to write for what I thought they liked about a record that was 3 years old and take out what I thought they didn't like from a record that was 3 years old, it would be somewhat of a waste of time because they've changed just as much as me, and I just try my best to write organically. I think the one thing that I do that's for other people is I try to take the business writing out of it. And I think that's something people enjoy about the Deer Hunter, that I'm not writing for writing a single, and I'm not writing for pleasing the label. And I think that's something people enjoy from the band.
You have no idea. That is that. Okay, so not to completely just compliment you, but I'm going to. I've told Eric the same thing. I've thought back like 20 years or so, and I can't think of a better band than the Deer Hunter that's writing at this mature level.
I mean, I think there's plenty of bands that do. Honestly, I think that the thing is, you see a band like Coldplay who comes out and their first few records are genuinely, I think, good records, and they showed the promise of becoming like another Radiohead, and then you see them turn into sort of like a glorified dance rock band,
right?
With very little what I would consider creative output. I think you have plenty of people who are more than capable of doing far better than the Deer Hunter, but I think that they get used to, or I may be blinded by the hope that they could be, I guess icons or very popular, very successful, very rich, all of those things. I think my greatest asset is that I gave up on being any of those things a long time ago. So I can just concentrate on trying to write good songs. But there's bands like Mr. Bungle is a band that I would say the record California is a tremendous record. Even like some of the more straightforward rock, like the early Deftones records, are still records that I listen to and am inspired by. But I think they're out there. I think they're just as unknown as my band is the problem.
On that note, since we're talking about kind of what you gave up on, I guess, tell us kind of like what you expected to get out of music, and like, it seems to me that the answer to my question would be that the sacrifice is worth it.
I guess but it's like, what's the sacrifice? Not really sacrificing much. I think that anybody who does the thing that they like to do, and you say the sacrifice, it's strange because you're assuming that if you did something else, you would be better off. And you would only be better off with a select few aspects of your life, potentially. So I don't necessarily think of it as a sacrifice, or I don't really think of much that I do as a sacrifice. I mean, from time to time, I get tired of being on the road, and I get tired of the food, or I get tired of the driving, or I get tired of lifting my amp up. But that, I feel like, is akin to anybody else's day, the things that they get tired of. Breaking a shoelace when you tie your shoes, or stubbing your toe against a wall. It's just that I think I have a different set of daily frustrations. But I don't know. I've never thought of it as sacrificing. I've always thought that I was just very lucky to be in the position.
That's a good answer. I like it.
What do you feel about the pop world and radio? I know me and Boggs, we're not fans at all. I mean, do you think that it has any kind of constructive force, or is it just like me and Boggs imagined it, a wasteland of mediocrity and terrible songwriting?
I think that I've reconciled my personal frustrations with pop music with the realization that it isn't really creativity. It's not supposed to be that. It's not. It's. I think pop music is to music what McDonald's is to like the culinary world. You don't you'll have people whose guilty pleasure, like who is it? Is it Anthony Bourdain who loves McDonald's cheeseburgers? It's one of his guilty pleasures. I know there's people like that who they have those guilty pleasures, just like you'll find creative people who happen to think some pop song is tremendous or really like Lord or something like that.
Third Eye Blind.
But yeah, I mean, but I think that it's not the same thing. I think that, and not to group in all music with pop sensibility, but I think that pop music, the stuff that you really know what it is when you say pop music, I don't think that's meant to be the same thing. I don't think it's music, personally. I think it's like marshmallows. It's got the nutritional value of a marshmallow for music.
I would agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a little bit more technical, but one of the most iconic moments that I've heard, and it took me probably 6 months of listening to the Delphi Express to kind of figure out this, that I loved, and I wanted to ask, do you, especially for the acts, did you write lyrics first or music first? Because that moment at the end, I like had this epiphany. I was like, holy shit, this is a train going by. And you made it a percussive sound, and it was really well put together. And I was wondering, like, that's lyrically inspired. So I wanted your take on that.
Well, first, I appreciate that. It was just the whole record. I'm trying to think. A lot of it of Act 2 were songs that I had demoed a little while before, and actually, one funny thing about it was that the song "Dear Misleading," I didn't even really remember this until like a year or two ago when I was going through my email. But like, the lyrics to "Dear Misleading" were literally this letter that I wrote to somebody, minus some of the more theatrical wording and dramatic, sort of poetic approach. But it was that was like a hateful letter that I wrote to somebody when I was really upset. But for the most part, the music was written, and but like I was saying before, with naming songs before I've even written them, I knew exactly what the moment needed to be, and it made writing the lyric writing process much easier because it was almost paint by number with the music behind it. It was I don't know. It was just very. It was all there for me already in the music, especially in that song with the rhythm and the train sound and the chain gang before it. It was all very much just sort of there from the beginning.
That's probably one of my favorite moments just off that album, maybe even in your entire work. But
thank you.
Which brings us to another question that I can't answer. Anytime somebody asks me like, hey, what do you like in the Deer Hunter? Like, what's your top 5, top 10, top 15? I'm always like, dude, I don't know. Like, I can't make a top 15. So we wanted to know, like, what are your top 3 songs, maybe?
I have a really weird relationship with the music I write, which is I start writing it, I get really, really excited. I finish it, I listen to it maybe a couple times, and then I'm just embarrassed by it, and and then I never ever want to hear it again.
Okay.
And then you get to go on the road and play it over and over and over and over and over.
Exactly.
Well, maybe that's a better way to phrase it. What's the song that you like performing the most for the fans? I mean, do you get
Well, the song that I enjoy physically playing are songs like Home and trying to think what we played. We played on this last tour. What was it called? What It Means to Be Alone is a song that I really enjoy playing.
I do love that one.
And Life and Death is another song I really love playing. Actually, the song Bring You Down, I like that song.
That's
but,
a really good one.
it's tough because the songs that I enjoy, like the feeling of playing them, the physical feeling of playing them, some of them are songs that the crowd doesn't necessarily react to very well. So it's kind of, like the best feeling playing a song live. Sometimes it's been a song like Misplaced Devotion from the Color Spectrum, or obviously the feedback whenever we play Red Hands is good, and so that makes it enjoyable, but the physical act of playing it is almost grueling at this point. It's not necessarily going through the motions, but it's like sometimes in the middle of the song I have the thought, like, I can't believe I'm doing this right now. Almost like self-disgust. But then as soon as everybody joins in, that feeling quickly goes away, and I remember why I'm doing it. Yeah, it's different. But the songs that I named I really enjoy playing. Really, it changes from tour to tour, though.
So obviously, when you talk about the Deer Hunter, it's impossible to disassociate yourself from the acts, because those are probably some of the most beloved songs, from your fan base. Even though, as Boggs pointed out to me, a lot of people point your quintessential work to the Color Spectrum. But how would you say that the writing progressed from act to act? Because from everything that I've read and everything that I know, Act 1 was more of like a demo or an EP. And then obviously Act 2 is around the same style, but it gets much more percussion heavy, and you get much more melodic with the way that you stream songs together. So I was just curious as to how your writing developed through the acts.
Well, Act 1 was, let's see, I started writing Act 2, and then somebody showed Triple Crown Records the demos I had. This was while I was still in the band Receiving End of Sirens, and Triple Crown asked me if I wanted to release it or do the Deer Hunter as a side project at the time. And so I wrote Act 1, and there was no budget, so I was doing it on my own. I wasn't necessarily completely sure of the style that I wanted to do, and that's why I think that record, more than, I guess, anything until the Color Spectrum, was pretty sporadic. At least in my mind, Act 1 is very sporadic. But I think I'm trying to think of the best way to sum this up. Before I was in the band, The Receiving End of Sirens, I stopped playing music from when I was younger. I sold all my instruments, and then I met these guys while I was working at a Urban Outfitters as a cashier. And so until I wrote music for the Deer Hunter, the only thing I knew for a couple years was writing with other people. So writing music on my own, again, was something that I think it was like a muscle that needed to be worked. And that's why I feel by Act 3 was when I really got it the way that I wanted it. And that's why I think you hear the progression from Act 1 to Act 3.
On the note of the story arc itself, too, I wrote a lot of stories and essays, and I know that a lot of times when you're in a creative outlet, a lot of especially the frustrations of like your protagonists tend to be things that you're frustrated with, or that you fear, or whatever. How close to the story arc are you, in terms of like, this is like my life, to it's just a story I wrote?
I would say it is whenever you have a dream and you wake up and you ask yourself what that meant, and you can sort of trace all these strange symbols in there and images, and you can trace them back to concrete things that happen in your life. I would say it's that connected. It's things that I've gone through and things that I feel, but they're heavily romanticized and fantasized in the story. So some girl that I might have been mad at because I feel like she wronged me becomes a whore in my story.
Oh, don't they all in the end?
They always
awesome.
do, don't they?
It's just a matter of time.
And that was something that I didn't even realize while I was doing it until I was writing Act 3, and I think I was writing the Poison Woman character, who isn't a whore. And I realized up until that point, any female character I had or had dreamed up in the story was a prostitute. And I sort of had to take a step back and see that there was some obvious bitterness towards females at that time. So
We've all
so I
been
think
there.
it's like, I obviously have never been to war, but Act 3 and the use of war and the different characters in that are more just romanticized versions of moments from my life.
So I know you get it all the time, probably via email, Facebook, Twitter. Every time you do a show, I'm pretty sure you're so sick and tired of this question. But are you ever planning on revisiting the acts and completing the story arc?
You know what? I was thinking about this the other day, and I haven't told anyone yet. But I'm not doing it for my next record. I'm like almost 20 songs into writing my next record. Like
Awesome.
I've got about 20, and
Jeez.
I'll hopefully whittle that down to 12 that I love. But I'm working on that, and then I had a dream almost a week in a row every night about writing Act 4, and then I woke up one morning and thought, well, I guess I just have to commit to doing it. So my plan is that I will finish. I'll finish this record. We're gonna record it in the early fall, and as soon as I'm done writing this record, as soon as I know I've written all the songs and I can go and write something else, I want to spend a little time writing a second symphony, and then immediately go on to writing Act 4. I think that's what I want to do. I think I want to. Part of me wants to just write and record Act 4, 5, and 6 and take off like a year and just devote my time entirely to that. But I know for a fact that after this next record, I'm going to do Act 4 for sure.
Fantastic. I'm pretty sure a huge amount of the fan base will be super ecstatic to hear that.
We'll
Awesome.
spread the shit out of that so you don't have to answer that question anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, put that on the back burner. Just divert everybody to this episode. That's all you got to do. So moving on to your next project was the color spectrum, of course. You jump around from genre to genre quite a bit. I mean, there's electronica in there. There's country. There's kind of almost poppy. There's industrial. All kinds of different stuff. Did you get a lot of criticism from the people around you about jumping around the genres, or did they kind of get it whenever you told them no, it's about the colors, and then it sunk in, or were they just like, no, that's stupid? Why would you have a country song in the middle of your album?
When I made the color spectrum, it was at a really lucky period of time in my life where I think the band wasn't necessarily big enough for the people around it to be so concerned in the material on that level, on the level of you're gonna freak your fan base out or whatever, but big enough that people were willing to put I guess there's no better word than funding, but back the release of it. So nobody really said anything, to be honest. I think out of laziness of not wanting to even get into the discussion and knowing that I had like a philosophical idea behind it that I would enjoy discussing for a long period of time, I think it was more like, let's just let Casey do that thing and not have to even know what it is. Because critiquing it as someone close to me in the business sense, the act of critiquing it would really take taking the time to fully understand it and giving the music not only the critique from the standpoint of it just being a song, but also the critique of it being part of this concept that's a very it's my perspective. So giving me a critique on my perspective of something it's just firepower for an argument. It's something that usually happens with me when basically when somebody tells me how to better express myself creatively, that usually ends in an argument. So I think at that point, the people around me had kind of learned that and just figured they'd let me go and do what I do.
The record Black, it has a lot of social commentary in it. You know, some of the lyrics are, well, besides for one which is very personable, the others are very just, you know, the damned are going to inherit the earth, you know, and talks about them sinking us essentially as a society. I'm just curious, how much do you dive into politics, and how much is that of your daily life, or how much do you think about, you know, the powers that be, and how much, because our podcast is a lot about the injustices in the world, and Black seems to have a lot of that in there.
Well, I'm trying to think of how exactly to answer. I think that I have a good mind for what's going on. I don't necessarily spend, you know, a good portion of my day on Al Jazeera or anything like that, reading too much about anything. I think a while ago, when I was younger, I was very heated and I was very ready to get into debates, and I was very ready to not only challenge people but chastise them for not knowing as much as I did on any given political topic, or not agreeing with me, or not seeing the truth the way that I saw the truth. And when I started to notice that quality in other people as well, and then I could really see it in myself, I kind of developed the opinion that instead of obsessing over those things and sort of isolating myself from other people based on those things and those differences, and obsessing over the things that I felt I couldn't affect, and that's not apathy, but instead of obsessing over the things I knew I couldn't affect, I would just devote all my time to the things that I knew that I could. And part of me wishes that I could be a better and more selfless person, and sort of leave the daydream life of rock star to the side and become a full-blown humanitarian. But I'm not a good enough person to do that, and I'm fine with that. And I think that as long as I just continue doing the thing that I'm doing and trying not to inject too much negativity into the world, that's what I try to focus on. So as far as politics go, I always have an opinion, like most people, but it's much more based philosophically and logically than it is based on statistics, like reading the back of political trading cards or anything like that, knowing how many drones this person sent into this place and how many innocent people died on this day.
So the song No God, which I know is probably one of my favorite titles. I don't know if that's one of the ones that you named out of the 20%. We're all atheists here, if you didn't know that.
Yes.
But what is your idea about the God hypothesis? You don't have to answer that question if you don't want to. I know it's a little bit of a heavy hitter.
Oh, no.
It's kind of loaded, too, but whatever.
Loaded, yes. And also, I mean, I know that probably the predominant of your fan base is probably Christian, because, I mean, you are in America, so.
Yeah.
There's a song on the new record that I'm writing right now that the lyric is, I hope there's not a heaven. And I think that's really like the feeling that I have, is that it's the same kind of thing. I don't want to waste much time concerning myself with believing it or not believing it, but based on everything that I've heard about it, I really hope it's not true. I really hope that all of the stories that have been told, and the idea that there would be somebody who would send his one his one son in the history of mankind down on Earth to just be maimed and physically ruined, to save a very small percentage of the population. I think that to me can't really exist. It's just it's when I think about it logically, even those things, when I don't even bring science into it, which the second you bring science into it, it's sort of it becomes a ridiculous topic. But even if you don't bring science into it and you just look at the stories that have been told, I think they're so terrifying that I would never ever want that to be that way. And I think that's one of the underlying thoughts in that song, is that the good things that I've learned and the ways that I've learned to live aren't necessarily rooted, or they're definitely not rooted in that fear that I think comes from religion and comes from the belief in God. It's just it's a way that I've been brought up by my parents, who are both, I mean, I don't necessarily know what my mom is. I know my dad's an atheist, but I think my mom is, she's a hippie. She's a very she's an astrologer, and she's excessively metaphysical. But yeah, I was brought up by two people in a house that was completely void of any religion or God. So I feel very lucky for that.
Yeah, I think, well, I know I did, and Boggs did, of course. We had to fight our way through it.
Really?
Oh, I'm definitely a black sheep in my family. I'm not really invited to a lot of the events over religion. Yeah.
Well, I don't think that's a reason he's not invited, to be honest with you.
Many other reasons.
It's very, I think that seems to be such an often case, and it's the most confusing one, when somebody who isn't religious is shunned by people who are, when I would think just fundamentally it should be the exact opposite. That based on what everyone says they are, they should be welcoming absolutely everyone into their lives and into their hearts. And
they're afraid of people that aren't like them.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm just saying, I am confused how it's gone on this long without anybody just actually, without that being a bigger topic, or I guess a less silenced topic, is just the excessive mismatch between the sort of bedtime story fundamentals that everybody knows Christians and most religious people define themselves by, and the actual practice of it. It seems so strange that it's not, that it is so mismatched.
That gets written off to, well, they're just bad Christians, but
yeah,
what can you do?
That's true.
So I guess for the color spectrum, and I guess this question is it's kind of childish in a way, but for the context that we have, what's your favorite color?
I was kind of doomed, because when I was named, my middle name is Blue, so my my favorite color has always been blue.
Was that your favorite one to record?
No. I think my favorite one to record they were indigo and white were my favorites. Black was fun, but it was really depressing to work on because whereas indigo was 90% just me sitting at a computer and messing with things, I was sitting at a computer and messing with things to make really beautiful sounds. So that sort of strange alone time yielded more pretty objects. And then black was just me sitting, staring at the computer and slicing things up, trying to make more grating and depressing sounds. And so just being alone with the goal of writing downtrodden and music and creating depressing tonalities, it was just depressing to work on, really.
Wow. So I want to move on to Migrant real quick. How the fuck did Middle Ground not make the album?
I did what not make it?
Middle Ground. It was on the annex. It wasn't on the album.
I don't know, man.
I don't either.
Well, I'm trying to think. I wrote and recorded Migrant, and when I showed everyone, family included, it was kind of like, it feels like there's something missing. It wasn't like it's missing radio singles or anything, because Whisper was one of the first songs that I wrote for the record, and that was the song that they actually decided to try and service to radio. But it was just like something's missing, so I went back and I wrote 4 more songs, and we ended up with, I forget if it's 18 total between the two, I think. And when we were trying to figure out what, to put what where, that one just sort of got edged out by all of the votes and of everybody involved. And being, the band was 6 people, and my family and my managers are 2 people that I trust very, very, very much. So when we were going through and figuring it out, it's like that one just sort of didn't make the cut when we were sectioning songs off and figuring what would be good on one release and what would be good on the other. But I can definitely say that there's a few track listing decisions that I regret, and that is one of them. I wish more people knew that song.
That song is pretty sweet, I'm not gonna lie.
Thank you.
Actually, the entire Annex is pretty damn good.
Thank you.
It seems like a very personal album. I know the other ones, they have their story arcs, they have their concepts and what have you, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of a lot of you in those songs as well. But this seems like the first album that you had where it was just a lot of you in there. And is that why you decided to go very piano heavy and very orchestral with it? Because it seems like every song, it's piano driven.
I think it was just that when I started writing, I started writing on the piano, and it felt very natural at the time, so I continued writing on the piano. And then when I looked up and saw that the record had been written, everything had been written on the piano. But I think the decision to make it less about huge guitars and bombastic moments was definitely one to try and keep it somewhat stripped down and somewhat personal and intimate. Even though there are, those big moments on the record, I think they're different than the ones from the acts. And that was also part of it, was making sure that it could stand on its own, and that it didn't just sound like the Color Spectrum or the acts called something else. I think we needed to make sure that it stood on its own, because it wasn't connected to anything. It was the first non-conceptual record for the band.
Yeah, it definitely separates itself. With the song "Let Go," that's by far one of my favorite songs that you've ever written.
Thank you.
Especially at the end with the transition, and it gets really big and giant. I think it's just fantastic. I have my inclinations, but can you tell me what that song is about?
I'm trying to think of the lyrics now in my head.
It starts with some sleepless nights.
Sing it for him.
Oh yeah.
I'm not singing for Casey.
No. I think that it's, again, a fairly straightforward song. I think that a lot of the record is about that mentality of letting go. And there's a song on the Annex, I think, called, is it Old Demons? Is that the name of the song?
Yep.
They a lot of the songs have that sentiment to it, and that song specifically the beginning is true, that sometimes I'll sort of lose sleep over the concern that I'm trying to think how to say this, that I'm concerned that I won't be able to be as good a person as I would like to be. Not necessarily looking at the things that I've done in the past and feeling like I've done terrible things, but it's more the concern that I want to be a good person, and I want to be proud of the things that I do and the interactions that I have, and even, the conflict that I carry. I sometimes lose sleep over that concern, and not only in me, but just sort of in not in such a universal way as humanity, but it's more of just the concern that it's a little bit beyond my reach, that the good and the positive, then the positivity is a little bit beyond my reach. So that song specifically is that conflict and that concern.
You can probably sleep pretty easy because as far as I'm concerned, like your music is helping me get through divorce. So
Oh my God.
as far
Here he goes.
Here we go.
Well,
and now we're on a 15-minute talk. But
Thanks, Casey.
It's helping get you through what?
I went through a divorce recently, so a lot of times your music is my way home.
Oh man, you'll love the next record then. 'Cause I just went through one.
Oh, that makes three
Yeah.
of us. Come on, Eric, get with it.
Sorry. I need to get married first to get divorced.
Yeah, you're fucking up the
Do
curve.
it, man. No,
So-
yeah, just last fall, I did, and so this record definitely has some more spiteful.
You could just
Songs.
say elements from Act 2. You can call it a day from there.
I like this though. Casey gets a divorce. He writes an album. You get a divorce. You sit in your room and fucking cry in the corner.
Oh, fuck off.
This is, see, why can't you be more artistic and make some use of your time? Boggs is a fine musician himself, Casey. I just want to point that out. That's why
Then
he's
you
so.
should do-
That's why he's so in love with your stuff because he
Then you
appreciates.
shouldn't be sulking if you've got some firepower to write some music. Then
That's what we tell him.
I might show you some stuff later. We'll see.
Oh God, you don't want to see his stuff. He tries to show it to us all the time.
nice.
Well, I'm sorry to hear about your divorce. That really sucks.
No, you know what? It's like, what is it Louis C.K. says? No good marriage has ever ended in divorce.
Yeah, something like that.
Yes.
And I do believe that. And I a few years ago, a friend of mine told me about a friend they had who said, when he went through a really tough breakup, he said that he was just going to make the decision that for one day he would let it mess with him. He would let it sort of ruin him. And then from then on, he would just sort of move on. And I wasn't able to get it down to one day, but I tried my hardest just to look at the situation and accept it, because it wasn't something that I brought on. And I tried to just look at it as logically and I guess as coldly as I possibly could, and just accept it and do my best to look at my life and see any opportunity that it might grant me in moving forward and growing. Obviously, there was a part of me that I guess is pretty selfish that a few months after it, when I started writing music, I found a very large well of inspiration. So I somehow am a profiteer from it, but I think that instead of lamenting it, I did my best to look at it and just accept it and move forward.
So if this next album is like the best work you've ever done, we'll have to get you hooked up and get you married and divorced again. So that's what.
Yeah, we'll see. I think as long as it's not Act 4, that no matter how good it is, there's going to be most people just waiting for Act 4.
You got two
I
of
don't
them
know.
here.
I've enjoyed the ride with the Color Spectrum and Migrant.
I haven't minded so much.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You wanted to ask him some technical questions there, sir?
No, I
Mr.
was just going to
Boggs?
talk tech with him. Eric wanted to know a lot of this too, because Eric is really interested in getting into like recording and stuff. But and we kind of knew that, like, especially with the Deer Hunter, you didn't really have a lot of budgeting to do. So how much do you know about like mic placement and what microphones are your favorites? Like if you have like a specific mic that you just love to use and ride with in your mic kit. Eric particularly wanted to know kind of what you knew and what you like to do.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I know a good amount. If you had any specific questions, I could probably answer them. Like, I know I love ribbon mics on guitar amps, and I've got a pair of Cascade Fatheads with upgraded transformers that I really love. But if I could afford it, I'd probably get Royer ribbons to mic them with. I know that I like to double mic acoustic guitar with a small diaphragm condenser and a large diaphragm condenser. I know my favorite vocal mics are far out of my reach financially, so
Yeah.
I like mics like the Bach Audio 195. That's one of my favorites. But I also like recording with the SM7, Shure SM7. That is Let Go and Whisper were done with an SM7, and trying to think of what the rest of the record was primarily done. Migrant was done with a Telefunken U47.
Okay.
But yeah, I feel like I know a good amount. I try my best whenever I get the opportunity to produce other records and to work with other bands. And that record from Naive Thieves, I produced and engineered and mixed. There's a band called Elephant in the Room from New Jersey that I produced, engineered. I don't know if I mixed them, and that was last year. But I try to do as much as I can. Acts 1, 2, and 3, and most of the color spectrum I produced, engineered, and mixed, except Act 3 was
Holy
mixed
shit.
by Mike Watts.
Lot of work.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's a band that I really love called River Empires, who I produced, engineered, and mixed from Oregon, who I also played on. And then they had another band called Falling Up that I did a record called Fangs for. I'm trying to think of what else off the top. Oh, there's a band called the Brobecks who had a record called Violent Things that I produced, engineered, and mixed. And
Good lord.
I try my best to do as much as I can.
So I think you know your shit.
I would say at this point it's safe to say you know how to fucking mix.
Yeah, when you
Well,
start your own company.
I used to have a studio where a lot of the color spectrum was recorded in Southern California, and now my cousin runs the studio. And then before that, my brother actually, as far as like carpentry, built out a studio in Rhode Island, and that's where we recorded Act 3. But I've always had something until actually now, since last fall, moving away from Rhode Island and moving to California. I have my laptop and a little Focusrite 2 mic pre interface and a few Shure mics, and that's about it.
On that note, past the microphones, do you like certain mic preamps, or do you have a tendency?
Oh, yeah.
I was about to say those are like the taste and flavor of everybody's fucking has something different. So what do you like?
Oh, I had a bunch of Vintech. I had a couple of X73s, and then the 473, and then I had some APIs that I really loved. But I think that if I was to spend a lot of money now, I would probably get the UAD, the Universal Audio UAD. They have what's it called? I forget what it's called. Let me look it up really quick.
Are you gonna Google this?
Apollo.
That is. Oh, okay.
The Apollo is a really cool device just because I don't know if you've ever used Universal Audio's DSP cards or anything like that.
Is that the bay
But
that they give you
essentially-
like all the little slots for? Or am I thinking of something
no,
different?
that's a lunchbox.
Okay.
That's an API lunchbox, and like a bunch of different companies make modules that fit in those compressors, EQs, preamps. Even Moog makes a filter for them. But the Apollo is this interface that has mic pre's that uses onboard DSP, and you use plugins that Universal Audio created, which are all licensed from different companies. So you have like Neve preamps, you have API preamps that are all running in DSP. So you have access to a virtual unlimited console of whatever sort of preamps you want when you buy this Universal Audio Apollo, because it runs, you record through these plugins. It's hard for me to describe, but if you're interested in that stuff, I would look it up, because the next time I actually spend money, I think that's what I'm going to be spending it on.
How much would that run you? Do you have any idea what the price is on that? Because that sounds expensive just from what you said.
I think they differ. I think there's there's different versions. There's one that's just a 2-channel pre that I think is pretty inexpensive, and then there is the the main one, the really nice one that has the Thunderbolt connector and all of that, and I think that's $2,500. It's not crazy expensive when you think of what you spend on like Avid hardware,
right,
or any other really nice. I mean, even if you are getting a really nice clock, for sync, that can run you $2,000, or a really nice interface is going to run you $2,000 or $2,500. So they're in the realm of everything else that's good. The only difference, it has this element that they don't have.
Do you like using just like the old analog type stuff, or are you really, really involved in digital stuff?
I'm both. I think that I would love to do a record to tape. I would love to go and do a record at a studio with a really good engineer who can service the machine and knows how to keep it in sync and knows how to, clean it and clean the heads and make sure that we have a really good sounding recording. But at the same time, I think that if you take your time and if you're using the right equipment and mic placement and all of that is correct, and your performances are good, I don't know how much it matters. I think that it's all about capturing a moment, and those are just different ways to do that. I don't think that recording on tape is going to make the songs any better, and I don't think that recording on digital is going to make them any worse.
Right.
So I know that recently you had to unfortunately cancel your UK tour.
Yeah.
I know we do have some listeners in the UK. I'm not sure how much they listen to your stuff. I'm not sure how much of our fans actually listen to your stuff. I know that we talk about you guys here and there, and
I've covered you a couple times.
Me and Boggs will cover you every once in a while, horribly, mind you.
Oh no, it's fantastic, guys.
But are you ever planning? I know you had a whole list of a laundry list of things that you were already doing, and I'm pretty sure you've got things further down the road. But were you ever planning to go back to the UK or even try?
I so desperately want to go back to the UK, or go to the UK for the first time.
I was about to say, you guys haven't gone there as the deer hunter, have you?
Yeah. No. I've only been there in passing. Oh, whatever you hear right now, I'm filling up water. I'm not.
Sure.
We all kind of looked at each other like, is he taking a pisser? While
I should just let it fill for like 5 minutes. So, sure. But I'm trying to think. No, the only time I've ever been to the UK was in a flight to go and do the symphony. Actually, it was just being in the airport. That's the closest I've come to playing in the UK, was just sitting in the airport and eating breakfast.
Damn.
So I desperately want to go, and the cancellation was sprung on me and the band at the last minute, and it was really heartbreaking and upsetting. But when Anthony canceled, we weren't able to just go and do it on our own. The promoters wouldn't have it.
Yeah. That is really heartbreaking, man. I'm really sorry for that.
We are. It was strange. It was like a dream come true, and then all of a sudden it was not happening. So we're trying really hard. I think there's a booking agent there who's trying to come up with a good routing for us, but it's all up in the air. I don't have any definite news yet.
Something that I think Eric and I we jokingly asked ourselves if we would ask you this, but no falsetto. How high is your range? Have you mapped that out?
I don't know. It's as high as I can sing or yell. I don't know.
I clocked it a C sharp.
I don't know the note.
You're at a C sharp at least.
You cut out for a second. What was that?
You're at a C sharp at least as far as whisper is concerned, and I don't know how the fuck you do it, but I kind of want it, so. Because that's damn good, damn fine of you.
I don't know, man. I have no idea. I just scream, and then I lose my voice, and then when it comes back, I get a little bit higher of a register, but it's a really horrible way to expand your range, so I wouldn't suggest it for anybody. But I don't really know. I've never...
Do you think you could, just
I
get
never
one out
think too
right
much
now?
about it unless I'm writing something and I...
You have to, like, adapt it?
No, God, no.
You're not going to sing right now? Okay. I'm just asking. The worst you could say was no.
Boggs wanted you to do a duet with him. That's why.
The
Like-
connection seems very strange, and the video is all blotchy, and now the audio.
It's okay.
Uh-oh.
We're just playing around.
No. Are you guys there?
Yes, sir.
I am.
It's
Are you there?
It is super muffled.
Well, I don't know. Do you guys have anything else? Because I know we've had Casey for much longer than I expected to have
Yeah.
him. I do. Can you
go
hear?
ahead.
Can you still hear us, Casey?
I can, but it's super muffled, and like the bit rate just jumped down pretty far. I don't know how.
That's
But,
okay. I mean, we've had you so long. I mean, you've been
Oh, it's fine.
extremely
If there's-
generous. There is
If there's
one,
anything else you need, or if you're done, it's up to you.
I have one thing I want to ask that these guys didn't think of. I'll pull it back. We'll do the circle round since Boggs hit you with a goddamn Final Fantasy question at the beginning of this, which caught us by surprise. You guys had a song appear on the new Rocksmith video game. I was wondering, how does that come about? That's fascinating to me how that comes about. Did that something that they came to you and asked you about, or was that through management?
No, that was something they came and asked us about, and that was actually a fan of the band who worked for the company that did that,
Okay.
who saw us, I think, in San Francisco, and then reached out to me and was like, "Hey, would you be cool with this happening?" And I was, I was like, "Yeah, of course, why not?" And so then I just put them in touch with the management, and they worked it out. But yeah, it was really, really cool. It was cool because it seemed like I had a lot of friends whose dads played that game.
Yeah.
That was the response I got most often was, "Hey, my dad was playing this game and he said your song's on it."
Yeah, I'm trying to learn some guitar with it myself. Failing
Interesting.
miserably.
I hear that it's definitely a weird song choice for the.
No, do we
Yeah, I
lose
thought
him?
it was kind of weird myself. Are you still there, Casey? I think we lost him completely.
Oh no.
Damn it.
Well, I think we did pretty good. We totally wore his ass out for like an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah, no shit.
We'll get back with Casey and let him know how much we appreciate it having him on. And I want
Wait.
to.
Oh, he's back.
Are you guys there?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry.
Well,
I was just trailing off while the connection was gone.
No problem. We were going to let you go anyway because, like I said, we've kept you for so long, and I know we wanted to say thank you very much. And of course, we'll put a little bit more promotion out for you guys and stuff. And like we said, we talk about you quite a bit. These two right here are both in love with the band, and I know Boggs has a man crush on you like you wouldn't believe. So it's a good thing that you're on Skype and not here in person. It might be bad for you.
Well, I appreciate that very much, and honestly, like it's I enjoy it. Not in the sense of I just enjoy talking about myself, but I appreciate it, and it's very cool to just come on here and talk with you guys.
Yeah, I know they kind of bored you. I wanted to talk about like Japanese porn and traveling and doing all that kind of stuff, and they got all technical on you. But what are you gonna do?
Well, I'm always up for doing one if you guys ever want me to do another one. So just email me or whatever, and we can do that.
Absolutely.
Definitely when the new albums come out. So the
Awesome.
Symphony drops in June, correct?
Oh. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, we will make that known. And we got the exclusive. The new acts are already being thought up. So excellent.
Yay.
Well, again, thank you for your time,
Yes.
Casey. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Have a good night.
You too.
And that was our interview with Casey Crescenzo, frontman for the Deer Hunter, coming out with his Symphony #1 in June, as he said. If you go to merchnow.com, you can pre-order those. There's 3 different bundles to purchase from. I'd highly recommend going with the at least getting the vinyl and digital bundle. You can also check them out at thedeerhunter.com, and that's deer spelled with D-E-A-R, not D-E-E-R. No horns. Or, I mean, I'm pretty sure you can check them out on Facebook. You can get them on Twitter, all that good stuff. In case you want to check out some of his other stuff, and I would highly recommend going to, I believe, Triple Crown Records to see all the acts and the color spectrum, and potentially pick up your vinyls on there. I know they repressed the acts just recently. I don't know if they're sold out yet. And also the color spectrum, which I'm pretty sure is sold out on vinyl, but I think you can get it on CD still. And of course, you can go to iTunes and get all this stuff digitally as well, with the exception of the Symphony, which is coming out in June.
Yep, and I'll link everything onto our Facebook as well, and I'll put some links on Twitter. So if you follow us on there, then you'll be able to pick it up as well.
All right, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a good week.
Go fuck yourselves.